Hello, viewers, welcome. Today we are going to discuss Madness of Hamlet. Is Hamlet's madness real or feigned? Introduction. Hamlet is considered to be the best tragedy of Shakespeare. The Prince of Denmark, Hamlet is the protagonist of this play. He is very complex character. His madness in the play is a contradictory issue. On this issue, critics of Shakespeare and the characters of play are divided in their opinions. Some critics are of the view that Hamlet is really mad. Somehow other says that his madness is a mere pretense, just an excuse. Is Hamlet's madness real or feigned? This question demands discussion. To know the answer of this big question, it is essential to analyze and evaluate the major incidents of this play. Feigned madness. Now, arguments about the feigned madness of Hamlet. First of all, it should be noted that the feigning of madness is a part of the revenge play. So, Hamlet is a revenge tragedy, very famous tragedy of revenge, and it is a part and parcel of revenge tragedy to have insanity. Here you can see scenes of madness or insanity is a part and parcel of revenge tragedy. In Hamlet, Shakespeare maintained this convention. Hamlet is sane throughout but feigns insanity. So, throughout the play, he is very sane and he is very witty, but he is feigning, he is acting like an insane person. Some important critics like Dowden, Richardson, and Wilson Knight say that Hamlet's madness is not real but it is a pretense. Some others call it crafty madness. Some of the important characters like Claudius and Polonius always suspect his madness. Now, Polonius is a chief counselor of Claudius, and he says that he in a aside, though this be madness, yet there is a method in it. So his madness is not it is unique and it has some method in it, some art in it. And in Claudius also says on the very another occasion, Claudius is his uncle and he's a very shrewd man. He suspect madness of Hamlet, and he comments after observing him, love his affection do not that way tend, nor what he shake, though it lacked form a little, was not like madness. Act 2, Scene 2. So, in this scene, he says that Hamlet is not like madness. In Hamlet, behavior is not like madness. So, this shrewd man like Polonius and Claudius are of the view that Hamlet is behaving like a mad person. He is not actually mad. Through his various statement, also Hamlet's statement, speeches and soliloquies, Hamlet himself accepts that he is not mad. We can find his acceptance in the following statement. So once he talked with Horatio, his best friend, and his fellow student of University of Wittenberg. He says, here as before, never so help you mercy, how strange or old sore I bear myself, as I perchance hereafter shall think meet to put an antique disposition on. So he is telling Horatio that from now onwards I will put an antique disposition, I will behave as if I am mad. Once again he says to his mother that he is not really mad. He says, so once when he was with his mother Gertrude in her chamber, and he had a confrontation with her mother, he told, when his mother told him that you are a madman, you are talking to nobody, there is nobody and you are talking, then he told her, my pulses as yours doth temperately keep time, so my pulses is also doing well as your pulses are doing, and make as a healthful music, and it is not madness. I am not mad. That I have uttered, whatever I have told is not of madness. just I'm a sane person, bring me to the test, you can test me, and I the matter will reward which madness would gabble from. So anybody can tell that I am not mad, you just, it's your thinking, your wrong thinking. Hamlet assumes madness for various reasons. So he is assuming that madness for various reasons, and there is many reasons for that. It is a defensive apparatus, it's a defensive mechanism for him. It is just to shift all suspicion from him. He wanted to deal with Claudius, his uncle, who has killed his father when he was sleeping, and Claudius was king of Denmark, and he was surrounded by bodyguards. So he wanted to kill him. He wanted to take revenge from him. So in order to take a defensive mechanism, he acquired this madness over him. Thus, he assumes madness in order to befool his uncle and other enemies. So, this was the case. Now, real madness. There are many points made by critics about his real madness. Some important critics are of the opinion that Hamlet's of madness is not feigned but real. So, this is also the view. They say that Hamlet is actually mad. According to them, if he feigns madness in the beginning, he becomes actually mad later on. So, such critics have some ground for their beliefs. They they refer to Hamlet's hysterical outburst in his interview with his mother, and by graveyard side of the Ophelia. So this view, which critics made, was on the basis of Hamlet's hysterical outburst when he was talking with his mother Gertrude in her chamber, and when he was misbehaving with her. You can see the picture also. Here he was behaving very badly with with his mother, and when he jumped into the graveyard of that Ophelia, in the graveyard scene, he jumped into grave of Ophelia. So that was the case. So on basis of these things, um, that critics give such opinions that he was really mad. The murder of Polonius, his consent to participate in the duel with Laertes, and his behavior at Ophelia funeral prove his madness. And when he killed Polonius, you can see the picture here. He killed Polonius and he consented to play duel with Laertes, and how he behaved in a graveyard scene during Ophelia's funeral. All this proves that he was mad. So this was the opinion of critics. Now the characters like Gertrude and Ophelia also believe in his madness. So Gertrude is his own mother, and Ophelia, love interest of Hamlet, believes that he is a mad person. He was surrounded by maddening problems. So Hamlet was surrounded by many problems, which was very maddening and disturbing. The fact is that Hamlet is disturbed due to a lot of shocks. He had lot of shocks and turbulence, and he receives three root shocks. These root shocks are death of his father. So in the first shock was death of his father. His father was killed by his own uncle. Then the hasty remarriage of his mother. Then remarriage of his mother with uh, with uh, with her own brother-in-law. So you can imagine brother-in-law. So according to Hamlet, this was incest, and that was an immoral relationship. So he was very disturbed for that. Then loss of his hope of inheriting the throne. That was also the case on some, up to some extent. And Ophelia's betrayal was also the reason, because Ophelia sided with Laertes and Polonius and Claudius, and she rejected Hamlet. Due to these shocks, he loses his mental balance and he was mentally disturbed. Sometimes he thinks of suicide also, he soliloquies. And to be or not to be, that is the question. This is a very famous soliloquy from Hamlet when he contemplates on taking his own life. To be or not to be, that's the question, whether it is nobler in mind to suffer the sling of arrow of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing and them. Act 3, Scene 1. The communion with the ghost of his father aggravate the situation. Now, when he met a ghost of his father, and his father, that ghost, the father in the guise of ghost says that you must take revenge for my murder and you must kill your uncle. So, this situation also makes him very, very disturbed. And because after that, his only goal was revenge, he was obsessed with revenge and he lost all his happiness in life and he was just obsessed with that one only one goal. Conclusion. To conclude, Hamlet's madness is really a very difficult issue. Opinions are divided on this. Sometimes Hamlet appears as a sane, and at the same time he appears as insane also. But when we minutely observe, we find that his madness is not real, but it was just a feint. It was just a pretense. On certain occasion, he does appears to be almost crazy. So there is occasion when he appears crazy, but it can be explained as a result of an excess of bitterness and melancholy. So his mind was full of bitterness and bitterness for the his uncle, and melancholy. He was very sad because of death of his father. It is not indicative of madness. So these are not madness, but it was a bitterness and melancholy. His madness has a touch of wisdom and method. So there was a madness, but it was a wisdom. He was full of wisdom and wittiness, and he had some method in it, some art in that madness. All men of genius are somewhat mad, and Hamlet is mad only because he is genius. He is depressed and melancholy, and yet mostly he retains his artistic sense, his ready wit, and his imaginative vision. So he was imaginative, he was witty, and Hamlet is also entirely sane. There are many occasions in the play when Hamlet's madness is revealed unmistakably. So sometimes he appears mad. If Hamlet was mad, he would not spare the king at his prayer on delay and definitely in taking revenge. So it was that he was not mad, so he spared the king at that when he was praying. At that time, he thought that I cannot kill Claudius because he is praying, and if I will kill him at this moment, he will go directly to heaven. So a thinking person only can think like that. If he would have been a murderer or a mad person, he could have killed him instantly without thinking. So Hamlet is not completely mad. He is not entirely sane either. His condition is somewhat between the two. One critic has aptly remarked that Hamlet's condition is less than madness, more than feigned. So he is between that in the graph. He is more than that feigned, that pretense, and but it is little less than madness. So he is in between somewhere. Hamlet's thought process are contaminated in such a way that he has a diseased vision of world and humanity. So he was very, very disturbed soul. He was disturbed with the fate. He was disturbed with Claudius and his mother's conduct. So he was full of melancholy spirit, and he had a lot of vision about the world, and he thinks that the whole world is full of evils in his deranged mind, and killing one Claudius could not solve the problem. Hamlet was very, very moral and very, very thoughtful person. Hamlet suffered from a disease that modern psychotherapists call schizophrenia. So we can say that he was suffering from schizophrenia. His mind is split into two. He was of two mind. The question of to be or not to be, that's the trouble him in partially the result of this schizophrenic condition. So he was suffering from that. Although he pretended to be a madman on the conscious level, deep down his psyche, Hamlet is tainted with an incurable spiritual madness. So his madness was not that kind of physical, it was spiritual. He was disturbed, he was mentally disturbed, and because of that he was talking like that and behaving like that. And hope you like this video. Thank you so much.